What's up, collectors? Welcome back to Films by Color. Today I wanted to talk to you about a theater experience I had at the Plaza Theatre right here in Atlanta. They were doing a showing of Hungarian filmmaker Béla Tarr's 7.5-hour masterpiece, Sátántangó, which he made in 1994. This is a 90s film, but it is shot in black and white. And like I said, it is 7.5 hours long. And there were two 20-minute intermissions, so 8 hours altogether. So it was an all-day experience. We were in the theater from noon to about 8 o'clock that night. And it was a packed house, full theater that I got to see this with. It was an incredible experience, and it's become one of my favorite theater-going experiences now. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that experience and about the film itself. I picked this up from Arbelos, which is a tiny little boutique label that puts out really nice releases. They only have a handful of spine numbers so far. This happens to be spine number 4. The only other release I had from Arbelos before this was their Son of the White Mare release, which is a seminal animated film by another Hungarian director, and it also includes another film by that director, János Vitéz, on here as well. So 2 films on this one. That's spine number 5. Highly recommend that if you want a very visually unique animated film experience based on Hungarian folklore. And then I also picked up recently The Juniper Tree, which is spine number 3 from Arbelos, and I haven't had a chance to watch this one yet. It's still sealed, but I'm very excited to check that one out. So I highly recommend looking into Arbelos. They're a really great label. They do some fantastic restorations, and it was actually their restoration that we were watching in the theater of Sátántangó that day. Let's go ahead and jump into my thoughts on the film itself. I'm also going to talk a little bit later in the video about some other Hungarian films that you can check out in preparation before you jump right off the deep end into Béla Tarr's epic. I watched all 3 of these films before I saw this, and I think it was very helpful in my overall experience. Let's talk about what it's like to watch Sátántangó in one sitting. So obviously the film is 7.5 hours long, but it's not just the length of the film that makes it interesting. It's also the style of filmmaking that Béla Tarr uses. It's not just like you're watching a Netflix series that's like 7 episodes long and you have a lot more story going on. It's about the same amount of story as you would get in a regular 2-hour film, but the pacing of the film is so important to how you actually experience the film. I read that in a normal, like modern Hollywood movie, the average shot length, if you were to take the runtime and divide it by how many shots are in the film, and you got the average length of each shot, it's 2.5 seconds. And for this film, Sátántangó, the average shot length is 2.5 minutes. So you've got long takes, some that go on for 2.5 minutes, some that go on for 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes sometimes. So it's an entirely different perception of time. It's a completely unique experience, and I've never seen anything like it. Normally, when you're adapting a novel to film, and this is an adaptation of a Hungarian author, László Krasznahorkály's novel of the same name, and usually when you're adapting novels to film, you cut out all the boring stuff. You cut out anything that is description, you cut out all the settings, the setting, the stage, the locations, you cut out all of the inner monologues and all of the stuff that you can't actually hear on screen. You cut out all of the characters' thoughts. That's the first stuff that goes. This film, we still do cut it all out audibly, but we don't cut it out visually, if that makes any sense. Let me see if I can explain what I mean. So there will be long shots, establishing shots of location. Instead of just a quick pan over and you see the location, it is a long, labored, slow pan where you have all of this time to take in all of this detail. And you, the viewer, have to spend that time filling in all of these setting and descriptions yourself. It's a very active movie-going experience. You have all of this time that you just have to kind of meditate on what you're seeing. Same thing with characters' thoughts. You'll have these long takes of a character just walking down the street and the camera's just slowly tracking behind them. A character runs out of alcohol and you watch him walk out of his house and go all the way to the store and get it and come all the way back, and you don't know what's going on in his head. You kind of have to fill in the blanks and use other things that you've seen in the film to kind of fill in the pieces. I think it would be a great writing exercise. I would recommend it to writers. You have to fill in those blanks and come up with all of the characters' thoughts, and you have really nothing else to do but just take it in and see what the filmmaker is trying to give you in those long takes and in those just long, lingering shots. So this is absolutely the closest experience I've ever had to a novel brought to screen. It feels like you're actually sitting at home all day reading a novel. Like I said, it takes 7.5 hours You are in it, you're with the characters, you're living with this town of characters for the entire day. You're getting to know them more than you get to know any other characters in a normal film. It's very similar to the experience of reading a novel. Like I said, you just have to do more of the work yourself instead of just reading the descriptions. I would love to see this treatment done with a book that I had already read. I think this would be a really interesting experience to do with a book that you were already familiar with, and seeing it adapted in this way to film. It just puts you in an entirely different headspace while you're watching. My mind was just immediately jumping into all of these intricate descriptions as I was going. There's lots of scenes where characters are just kind of staring off into the distance, and it just leaves you to ponder about what they're thinking about. You get such fully drawn characters in this. You have so much more time to live with them, and you get so much more time to get into their heads than you normally do with the film. You are living with this small village, this small group of people, right at the fall of communism. It's kind of crumbling, but they don't even really know that. They're so cut off from the rest of the world. They're so behind, and they're kind of living in just squalor and poverty. And it's a very depressing film. There's very emotionally draining scenes, very sad scenes. There's an incredibly sad scene with a child that really affected me, but there's also beautiful and hilarious scenes. There's a scene in the middle, a dancing scene that goes on for minutes and minutes. I think it's like 8 minutes long, and it is like one of the hardest laughs I've ever had in a film, just because you're so this might sound like a con, but no, it's not, that you're so drained from living with them and the hardship that they're going through, that when you finally get that release, that comedic release, I don't know, it feels so good. And like I said, it's everything. You cry, you laugh. Such a stereotypical thing to say about a film, but this one, even more so than other ones, you just really get time to experience the life of these people. And even with all of the extremely long takes, I never felt the length. That's going to sound weird. I obviously I felt the length. I was there all day, but I never felt like I was seeing anything unnecessary, because it's such a unique thing. Like with other films, 3.5 hour films, even some films this year, I felt like they were a little too lengthy. You could have cut stuff here and there. This one, it's such a different experience. It's doing something completely different. It's a completely different conception of time in film, that it doesn't, I never was checking my watch or like waiting for the next intermission, because it's just such a completely different experience. And it is a pretty nihilistic film, and I usually don't connect with nihilistic films. They usually don't resonate with me. It's such an antithetical view of the world that I don't personally have, but for some reason this one never got too bleak for me. I think I just got so into the characters that I just kind of forgot how I see the world, and I was just seeing the world how these characters would, that it never went too far for me. It never got too bleak. It never felt too negative. It walks that line so well. It has such a balance of the ups and downs. I think that's why it never went too far for me. It shows all of the aspects of humanity. It shows the dark side and it shows the light side. It shows all the pain and misery. It also shows the joy. It's a roller coaster. It shows the ups and downs. That's where the title comes from. It's a dance. It's a tango with death. Satan Tango. It's a dance with death that we all go through, and I don't know, it's just one of the most human films I think I've ever seen. The experience was incredible, and it was so nice to see it with a full crowd of people. You're kind of like living in this theater with these people all day long. I saw the same people. There was actually a guy behind me, Will, who I met, who recognized me from the channel. That was really cool. I got to talk to him very briefly. I wish I had time to talk to him more. I went to the movie with my good friend John, who has been on the channel a couple times, and he brought one of his friends that he used to work at TCM with, and she was there with us the entire time as well. It was just a really cool experience. They had food there, but I was kind of weird, and I didn't eat or drink anything the entire day. I don't know, something about wanting to kind of go through the experience with the characters. I know it's just a small little thing. Like I didn't eat or drink for 8 hours. It's nothing like what they're going through, but I don't know, for some reason it just helped me get into the movie a little bit better to not drink or eat anything. And plus the pizza they had there was very, very expensive, and I didn't want to pay for it. So basically what I'm saying is, if this movie is ever playing at a theater near you, clear your schedule and go see it, because it is a one-of-a-kind experience, and I don't think you'll regret it. I think it's definitely worth seeing in its entirety in the theater at least once in your life. I do have it on disc now. I don't know if I'll ever do the complete 7.5 hour experience again. Maybe I will. I don't want to count it out, but I will definitely at least be watching this in part on home media. It also is, I didn't say, it's broken up into sections. It's broken up into 12 sections, and that's pretty thematically relevant to the plot. A clock, if you will. I won't say anything else about it because I don't want to spoil anything, because it is a great experience for the first time. So try not to look up anything. Avoid spoilers if you are going to see it. But like I said, it is broken up into those 12 parts, so you can break it up into individual experiences. But I think you at least got to watch it the first time in its entirety for the actual experience that Béla Tarr was actually trying to convey. Really quickly, let me talk to you about some other Hungarian films that I watched in preparation for this. I had the Hungarian Masters set, which is a beautiful box set from Second Run, which I've started collecting now. I did a video about that if you haven't seen that one. They put out a lot of Czech films, and they also put out some Hungarian films, and I actually found this box set at a used secondhand store, and I hadn't had a chance to watch them yet, but I wanted to watch them before I went to the theater to watch Sátántangó, just to get some Hungarian films under my belt before I jumped off the deep end. But it actually worked out better than I was expecting, because I think these three films actually do a pretty good job of preparing you for Béla Tarr's style of filmmaking. So I'll go through these in order. I watched them in order. There are 3 decades of film covered in this set. There's a 50s film, a 60s film, and a 70s film. The first film is Merry-Go-Round by Zoltán Fabry from 1955. This is a film that a lot of people think was robbed when it came out of awards. You've got some quotes back here from Cocteau and Truffaut. A lot of people, especially in France, this film really caught on, and a lot of French critics and directors really like this film, but it went under the radar in 1955 when it came out. This is a beautiful, just classic romance love story, kind of like a Shakespeare type thing, where you've got this female protagonist who is in love with this young guy who's just a farmer, doesn't have a lot of money, but her father has already promised her to another man because he's gonna get a horse and animals and land and everything. So a very simple story, but told so masterfully and so beautifully that you can't take your eyes off the screen. There's the big iconic scene where they shoot her on a merry-go-round. It's not really a merry-go-round. It's like what we would call like the swings here in America, like where you're on the chain swings and it raises up and swings around. And there's a crazy shot that keeps her in focus the entire time as she's spinning around. And you just see the background behind her. And you see there in the booklet in here, there is some photos of how they achieved this shot. The cinematographer, they built this crazy rig where he was actually like on the ride with the camera, like swinging around. The shot continues on, and she's continuing to spin around, and you see her father and her, fiance that she doesn't want to marry just in focus as she's spinning around. And then the shot is repeated later at a wedding where her and the man she's in love with, that she's not supposed to be with, spinning around and around, just dancing at this wedding. And then it does the exact same thing where it pans and you see her father and her betrothed just standing there. And it's a beautiful way to repeat the shot. Amazing cinematography throughout the entire thing. And as far as preparing you for Sátántangó, I think it takes place around the exact same time, the fall of communism. You've got them experiencing issues with the whole socialist working environment and people not pulling their weight. And it's very visually similar. It's also black and white. It's also just like mud everywhere, like mud just is coating every single scene. Everything is dreary. I think the way that Fabry portrays the characters in this and the hardship they're going through is very similar to what you get in Sátántangó, but this one is only 96 minutes. So I think that's a great introduction content-wise before you get into this. And then the second film in this set is from the 60s. It's called Current by István Gál. This is a completely different thing. This is another short one. It's only 86 minutes. This starts out as just like a hangout movie where you're hanging out with this group of adolescents on the brink of going to college. I think they might be 18. I think they might be in the summer between high school and college, and they're just running around and having a good time on the beach. And then about 15-20 minutes in, this is all I'll say because this is kind of the premise and it is in the synopsis on Letterboxd, but one of them disappears in the middle of their just fun day at the beach. One of them vanishes, and the rest of the film is all of the other characters dealing with it. And the director makes a very interesting choice, like I said, in the first 15 minutes of this, where he keeps all of the characters very interchangeable. You don't know a lot about anybody, so that when this character disappears, you don't even really remember who he was. You don't remember which one it was. you don't really know anything about him until the rest of the film unfolds, and it's through the other characters and learning about them and them reminiscing about him that you learn who he was and the effect he had on each character, and they learn something about themselves as we are learning who they are as characters. It's a really, really great ensemble coming of age character study. I really, really enjoyed this. As far as how it relates to Sátántangó, I think this is very similar in the way that you're just living with this group of six kids throughout the entire film, and you really get to know them throughout the film. It's obviously a lot shorter, but I think he does a great job of making them all distinct throughout the film, whereas in the beginning of the film you couldn't really tell them apart. And also Gal, I don't know how to say his last name, but he also uses a lot of long pan shots that show all of the characters reacting, and long tracking shots as characters are just kind of walking down the street. So very visually similar as well. This is also in black and white, and it's got some stunning cinematography as well. So these two together I think really lead into the Hungarian style of filmmaking that Béla Tarr is pulling from. And then the third one here is called Agnus Dei, I believe. It's a film by Miklos Jankso, and this one, first two I loved both of the first two films. This one was a little bit more impenetrable for me. I know that Jankso has a huge following. He is a very famous director, and he's really known for his allegory. And I usually really like allegorical films, but this one is a very specific allegory about the 1919 revolution in Hungary and the advent of fascism. Very, very specific. You got to know your Hungarian political history to really keep up. And that's an area of history that I know absolutely nothing about. So it was hard for me to actually get any of the symbolism in this movie, but I was still able to appreciate his interesting filmmaking style. He does a lot of long takes, a lot of expertly choreographed long takes where the camera is moving all over the place, very intense movements as all of these like big ensemble scenes, big cast. This is kind of a war movie, but like I said, it's very allegorical, so it's very small. It's not like, there's not like giant armies of people, but it's representing that whole time period. The author of the essay in the book compares this to Pasolini's Salo. He calls both of them a diptych, so they're kind of two sides of the same coin, one in Hungary, one obviously in Italy. So if you've seen that film, you know kind of what you're getting into with this. It's a very strong indictment of fascism, told with very strong violence, although this doesn't show much on screen, but there's a lot of implied violence that happens off screen. So this may or may not be your thing. I can't recommend this one to everybody. Like I said, it wasn't really my cup of tea, but I really, really love the first two films, and this one was at least visually stimulating enough to make it through. And like I said, there are some really interesting long takes that kind of translate into Sátántangó as well, but especially the first two I would highly recommend checking out. If you can find this box set, it's still available on second run. It's not out of print like I thought it was when I picked this up secondhand. I guess I could have just got a new one, but yeah, it's available on second run site. I highly recommend you checking those films out. It was an amazing week. I watched these all throughout the week, and then I watched this on Saturday, so it was an entire Hungarian film festival in my house that week, and it was an amazing experience, and I'll never forget it. And very, very happy that I went ahead and did that. And I hope you enjoyed me talking your ear off a little bit about these films, because I was excited to do so. I've had a great time with them, and I can't wait to experience them again someday. Maybe Agnus Dei will grow on me. I could see that being a film that grows on me on repeat viewings, so I hope that is the case. Let me know in the comments if you've seen any of these films, if you got to see Sátántangó in the theater, or let me know just about your favorite film theater experiences in general. I'd love to hear about those. If you do enjoy this kind of content and you don't mind, please consider hitting that subscribe button or the like button, or leaving a comment down below. It does help the channel out. But until next time, keep collecting, and I'll be back with another video real soon.